Hello, witchy bitches. I'm Aubrie.
And I'm Paiton.
And today we are discussing Olivie Blake's witchy Romeo and Juliet retelling, One for My Enemy.
Yes, so join us for this cup of coffee as we dive between these paper sheets.
All right. Let's do it.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to our official Halloween episode. We are so happy to have read Olivie Blake's One for My Enemy this month. And we're super excited to dive into all of the juicy, witchy details. But first, just let me give you a rundown on how we kind of do our episodes if this is your first time here. We're going to do a non-spoiler section first. When we enter the spoiler section, we will let you know. But right now, we are in our non-spoiler section. We like to start off with just a little plot recap just to kind of get you interested in the book so you come back and can listen to the whole episode with us.
Yes. All right. So, One for My Enemy takes the plot structure that you know and love from Romeo and Juliet and puts it in New York between two rival witch families. We have the Antonova family, which is comprised of like 8 sisters, but don't worry, you only actually need to know 2 of them. That is headed by Baba Yaga, the ruthless mother. And then we have the Fedorov family of 3 brothers and their scary daddy, Koschei the Deathless. There's also a little bit of Russian folklore, if you couldn't tell. The book is jam-packed with the dark and moody staple aesthetic and prose of Olivie Blake and has so much romance. It's just like blooming out of this book. And of course, all tragedies need some jaw-dropping twists and turns.
Yes. Oh, you know, we did, obviously we've both read Atlas 6 and
yes.
Once upon a time there was a podcast. I don't know if it's still up on our channel, but Olivie Blake has, we always say, at least for myself, I won't speak for Aubrie, it's a genre and a writing style. She's kind of like in her own box because she writes like a classical writer, but this book I had so much fun with because she took the Romeo and Juliet plot line and made them witches in New York City in modern day. Like, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. The concepts of her books are always like stellar. Most people are going to know her for Atlas 6, and that is the idea of like the Library of Alexandria, if it actually like still exists and survived in magic. And she always has fun magic going on. The aesthetic of this book is like top notch. The prologue is actually a series of like Google reviews for the shop that the Antonova witches like own, which I listened to the audiobook version of this book, and like it was like so funny, just like the list of like all the reviews for their little, like, they have a front because this witches, they're doing like crime witchy stuff. They sell drugs. There's a bunch of like dark and moody stuff going on in this book.
Yes, and as going along with the Romeo Juliet kind of like idea, and also like Shakespeare, the book is in acts and parts. So it's like, it's fun because you're like, oh, we're in like a new section of the book, and she really did a good job of making that new, the new part of the play. She did a really good job at like making it progress. Like the plot progressed in each part. Sometimes when I read a book recently and I was like, okay, like you didn't need the separation because we weren't changing scene, we weren't changing from one sister to the, like I think she did a really good job making it into a play.
Yeah. So it was so weird not seeing chapters. Everything's like scenes where you'd have chapters, acts where you'd have parts. But I do think that format, and I put this in my Goodreads review, helped her out so much because chapters are like typically all around the same length. Like you have a short chapter every now and then, but like standard, they have like a minimum length. Whereas these scenes did not. Like for the audiobook, there were scenes that were 20, 30 minutes long, and there was other ones that was only a minute long.
Yeah.
And so it's formatted obviously like a play is what it's inspiring from. But for those of us who haven't read a play since high school, it felt like a movie. Like you were going through these moments, and it could just be a quick conversation as a scene, or it could be like a long drawn out set piece.
Yes, and then mixing that with just standard fictional like novel writing was like insane. So just for visuals, and then Aubrie can see because she read the audiobook. This is Act 2, Face of Heaven, and she always had an excerpt from Romeo and Juliet, and it kind of got like a little tease of like what was to come in the act. So this is Act 2. And then Olivie Blake, in Olivie Blake fashion, of course, has these beautiful illustrations opening and this is the bonus of having the books. And you were able to really see the characters. Yep. And then you have the little parts. So, and they'll start like in the middle of the page randomly. And she's right. Like it's just a fun read because it is very fast paced. And just in the middle of the page, you're like, oh, we're in a new chapter. You know? It was fun. But yeah, Olivie Blake really puts emphasis on the beauty of having a book. You know, the illustrations. And this is how it is. There are all the sisters. And the brothers are in the back.
Okay, that's so cute.
Yeah, but she just, and I love how she always finds, like, local artists. So there's like, hey, you see my illustrations in my book? I don't know. I think it just goes along with the idea of like her genre and her style of writing is she does do those illustrations and she does do things differently. And even though I've kind of like, if people know my thoughts on Atlas 6, I'm not like the biggest fan. She's changed my mind with this. So
yeah, it's a whole experience reading an Olivie Blake book. Like, she gives you a whole package. It's not a standard typical book. It's always going to be something else. It's always going to be incredibly well written. There's always going to be amazing art. It's a vibe.
And isn't it so great to read a fantasy book and it's just one book? Like, the book ended, and sure, she could, I guess, if she wanted to make a second one, but like, it began and it finished. Like it was a book, and it's a fantasy book. Like I think it's great, and I actually think this would be if you have a book club. I think this would be a good book club book because it is broken into those acts. Just like read Act 1 and 2, like so. And I think the storyline's really interesting to read, and it gives you that little, once again, the prose of Olivie Blake.
Yes, this would be a great book club book. We should maybe. I wonder if Masters of Death, which is Olivie Blake's newest book, I wonder if that's a standalone as well, because that could be one that we recommend for our book club.
Yeah. I really want Masters of Death.
We need more fantasy standalones. I'd love just a little bit more fantasy standalone action.
Yeah, because when you look at this book, you're like, oh, it's like a little big, but. You know, it was like 400 something. But the thing is like, you're getting a whole fantasy story in it.
Yeah.
The world building, everything. And once again, Olivie, right away, like, she had a sort of index in the beginning because there's a lot of characters in this book. We got like 7 sisters on one side, 4 brothers on the other. Like, they all have their own little mob. So, I don't know. It's a great book. So I think it's be a good point to get into get into our star ratings because I'm gonna explode. Go ahead, Aubrie. What do you think?
Okay, I did really enjoy this book. I gave it a 3.5 stars. I feel like if you go into this book on vibes and aesthetic alone, you don't question some of the world building or character motivation, it's an awesome time. It being a standalone, you're moving quickly through. You know the archetypes of Romeo and Juliet, but I think that she does throw some fun twists in there. You're not getting the exact same story. This isn't a straight retelling.
Right.
I loved the vibe of it. My issue is that Olivie Blake writes with such high literary prose. It is a mountain to climb to consume this, and it gives you beautiful sentences, beautiful imagery. But that style of writing demands itself to be taken seriously. Like, you're not going to this is not a shits and giggle book. This is not From Blood and Ash, where you're there for the entertainment and for the story. You don't really care if there's missing pieces. If you're going to write like that, you are setting a high bar for yourself, and at the end of the day, like, I don't think that it hits every time. I think that there's things in the world building that don't make sense. I think there were times that the characters were doing stuff and I was like, I mean, that gave you an epic scene, but did you earn that scene? Did that scene make sense for those characters to be doing that thing? Even the ending, I was like a little confused. She also, because it's so high prosy, like, doesn't explain stuff as much as she probably needs to. And there were moments where I was like, what just happened? But at the end of the day, like, it's like a camp, like, overall good, dark, moody Romeo and Juliet retelling. And if someone is into fantasy and like likes a higher prose, I would totally recommend this book.
Yes, I honestly, like, reading this book, everything you just said, you made me feel so seen, because I felt the same way. I'm giving this 4 out of 5 only because I gave Atlas 6 like a 2.5 or 3 star. So like, we need to keep climbing the mountain, and she like deserves it. Like, I really, I was, and you know, Aubrie and I always talk about this on the podcast. For example, our last book club book, Aubrie read it and I listened to it. 2 different experiences. There's been a lot of times, Inheritance Games, we did an episode and I didn't love that book. I listened to it. So who knows? Like, who knows what you're missing in translation? Vice versa. Sometimes I listen to books and I'm like, you need to listen to the audiobook. Do not read the book because the experience is so good. So yeah, there's a lot of times where I was reading the book and I was like, wait, what just happened? Because she is so prosy, it's kind of like, well, it's just fancy. You just need to understand it. And it's like, well, okay, but then you have these very, like, sometimes juvenile characters who don't act prosy. Like, you know, like, there's text chains in the book and stuff like that. So, like, I like how she's kind of merging the 2 styles and, like, the ideas together. But sometimes it just, like, didn't hit. And sometimes it was just cringy. And I was like, I didn't like that so much.
Honestly.
Yeah, and in our spoiler section, a lot... in the spoiler section, a lot of it will make sense. But what I will say, and why I absolutely love this book, and I recommend that you read it, is when I hear Romeo and Juliet retelling, I'm like, oh, like, I hate kind of knowing. I don't love retellings because I know how it's going to end. But she took it and she crafted it in such a way that she made this well-known story arc like her own. And it's just so beautiful, and I you could see she really put like herself into some of the characters, and it was a very, very good book. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. Really recommend it. Olivie Blake is not an author to be messed with. I keep on buying her books, and they're always hot or cold for me. Reading the Goodreads reviews on both Atlas 6 and this, sometimes people are like, I liked Atlas 6 but I didn't like this book, or I hated Atlas 6 but I love this book. So who knows, if you didn't like Atlas 6, try one for what is it, oh my gosh, one for my enemy. I almost said one for your enemy.
For your enemy. Square up, bitch.
Join the witch bitches.
Yes. All right, so with that, we are going to transition into our spoiler section. We want to get into all of the details of this book. We want to talk about what those cringy moments were and a few other things to make our review make a little bit more sense. So if you haven't read the book yet, now is your chance to pause the video, go to Barnes & Noble's, get the beautiful black cover edition that, had I known existed, I would have actually bought the book, but I had already committed to the audiobook at that point. Consume this story if it's your vibe. It is good. Even with my 3.5, Paiton's 4. It's good. You just have to know what you're getting into for an Olivie Blake book.
Yeah.
And if you know and you're prepared, I think you'll enjoy it.
You'll love it.
But we have shit to discuss. So let's move into our spoiler section.
Yes, here we are, the spoiler section. Every episode, we go back and forth, and we like to jot down like things we want to hit. And Aubrie wrote out the notes for this episode, and the first thing I see here are way too many resurrections.
Oh my gosh!
But the thing is, it's not real life Romeo and Juliet, and they're witches, so I guess they can do that. But sometimes I'd be like, but you can't do that. Like, you can't just pull like a Marvel and like bring shit back.
No.
Yeah.
No. I was fine with Maria's resurrection when she came back and there was a heart thing. Like, clearly that was something she had set up. That made sense. Lev's resurrection, I was like, but like clearly at the point in the story it happened, I was like, okay, this like sort of makes sense. Dimitri was never actually dead, but like she kind of made you believe he was dead and then he wasn't dead. So like we're pushing the boundaries, but I'm like kind of understanding. But then at the end, for Maria and Dimitri to just be alive, I'm like, then what's the point? Like, you wrote a Romeo and Juliet. It was supposed to be a tragedy. The twist was that Romeo and Juliet was Maria and Dimitri and not Sasha and Lev. And then you brought them back anyways. For what?
Okay, so let's like that
was my little rant.
Then let's put this down because I want to make sure we get this right. Okay,
yes.
So we need I need a plot. Have you ever seen the meme where the guy's like with the his hair's all crazy?
Yes.
Okay, so shit goes down. Dimitri is like killed
in the intro.
Exactly. And that bitch does it, but she's like, but I didn't kill him. I just kind of killed him, because we find out that they are in love, and we think this is our Romeo and Juliet story, but we actually have two Romeo and Juliet stories going on at the same time. But so then Koshi the Deathless is like, I'm gonna retaliate anyway, and then she dies. But she tells Dimitri, she wakes up Dimitri. Then fucking Roman kills her, and he
stabs her with a sword, which is also, why do we have a sword? This is like modern day New York.
Yeah, and then she always told Dim, always carry my heart with you. He cuts her heart out, which this is the part where in the non-spoiler I was thinking she doesn't explain stuff, because I didn't know he actually took her heart. I guess I don't know if I skimmed that description reading.
Yeah.
But I was like, wait, she actually, and then because Baba Yaga was like, yeah, I knew he was gonna do that. I knew he was gonna cut out her heart. And so I was like, okay. And then obviously Lev and Sasha died too.
But did Sasha die? I was so confused in that section. So Stas, Maria's husband, shoots off a spell to kill Roman. And then didn't Lev take a bullet?
Yep.
He
dies.
The spell instead. He dies.
She goes over him.
Yeah.
To dying.
She's mourning over his body.
I forget exactly.
Because eventually Maria shows up then.
Yes. Okay.
And takes Sasha away.
And I do know that Sasha is dead though, because
fully,
I'm not sure about that.
They definitely think she's dead, because the deal that Baba Yaga and Koshi made was for both of the youngest to die, and then Sasha starts haunting Roman by just showing up and stuff.
But this is why I know she's dead.
Okay.
It's because she can fade into shadows, and I don't know, maybe because she's a witch too. But you know what I mean? She does what Maria does. She's there but not there. And then she would kind of be in the room when people were there, but she couldn't do that before.
Yeah.
And I remember when she woke up, and this isn't verbatim, but Baba Yaga and Masha, I guess they would call her, the Maria, because the mom and her have the same fucking name. That was confusing too. And so I was she's Masha was to Sasha was which is also confusing. Oh my gosh. Was you're gonna feel a little weird, you're gonna blah blah blah, like just this is blah blah. And she's like, Masha, you're alive, and Sasha, so anyways, the names
how
are really
did she
confusing.
die?
Okay, so Roman basically, she haunts Roman as if he killed her, but I think it was like he didn't kill her. Maybe that shadow person. I want to get this right, but this is what we mean, guys, by like the prose sometimes can like ruin the plot.
Yeah. Like, I'm all for a pretty prose, but I think that before you go into the pretty description, sometimes it's helpful to just add, and like I'm a creative writing minor, and so we talk about this like in class, and I feel like Olivie Blake could use this little reminder, is that sometimes you just gotta put like a sentence that says what's happening that's not super prosy, and then you can have like the really like beautiful descriptions and metaphors and how you want to describe it in your stylized version. But just like having like a few like sentences every now and then that are just straight up like this is what happened can help with a lot of confusion, because I'm confused for one.
Yeah, I mean, I tried looking up, but it's not that popular that it's just like, oh, this happened.
Yeah.
But okay, so regardless.
Yeah.
Let's just say they both died. Because they both thought each other died.
Yes.
Okay, so the bridge, who is like this mastermind between the two families, he can speak with the dead. He can see the dead.
Yes.
Because
he can walk planes.
Correct.
Because he goes to like the Fey realm, and he can also go to like the dead realm.
Correct. He like talks to his mom.
Yeah, he talks to his mom in the epilogue.
Yeah, so in the epilogue, when he sees Masha and Dim underneath the tree, I think they are dead.
Oh.
That's what, once again, guys, I think that they are dead. For him, I think it sums up the book that like they are living together and they are having their happily ever after, but they're just not just dead. They're just dead. That's the way I saw it, and I thought that was the purpose of the epilogue. I'm like, okay, Bridge is gonna be able to connect with them or see them somehow, and so he sees them underneath the tree, like cuddling, and so that's the way I took it, because he was talking with his mom who's dead, and
is his mom dead?
Yeah, because she's like
in the Fey realm.
No, I think one of his parents is dead, and the mom's like
about when his dad would die.
Correct, because she's like, when's your dad gonna die, basically. But I know that because she like died young and she doesn't age. Like she still looks super young, and he's aging and is like, I'm gonna look older than my mom.
I thought she just looked young because she was Fey and he's half human.
No, I think
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. But listen, guys, the magic world building on this is just so confusing and not explained.
Yeah, it is. It is. But with that being said, with the resurrections, that's what also makes it confusing, because it's like, okay, what?
Yeah, but come on, just came back again.
Think back to high school when we would read one scene from a Shakespearean play, and then we would discuss it for 40 minutes, because there's like, well, were they dead? Were they not dead? Like, he can see the dead, but were they really dead? Like, that could be a conspiracy. I took it as he was just talking to his dead mother. He like looked out the window, and it was like a happy ending closing, which is kind of cool wrap up of a tragedy, which it technically is. And so yeah, there was a lot of spoons in the witch's brew in this book. There's a lot going on.
So that makes, I still think too many people resurrected.
Yeah, totally. There was a lot.
But that does make more sense.
Yeah, when I was reading it, I looked up and I looked at my boyfriend. I was like, they can't do that.
I mean, and I do like the idea of Romeo and Juliet, because in the play, like the traditional Romeo Shakespeare stuff, they like Juliet takes the poison, but it's not actually a poison. It just puts her in that coma thing. But that's what happened to Dimitri. And then, or Romeo takes the poison, and then Juliet sees him, one of them. And then,
stab himself.
Yeah. And then stabs himself, and then then the other one woke up and saw that he had stabbed himself, and then, like, stabbed themselves with the blade again. And so, like, I like the idea of using magic to be, like, because there is, like, a fake resurrection in the typical play.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of being like, oh, they could actually die, and using magic to bring them back. But I think you get that once. You don't get that as many times as you need in your story.
I do like the ending when they're, like, all in the Bridger's office. And he, like, stabs the heart, and then he kills himself. I love that.
Yeah.
And I really liked the complexity of Masha and Dimitri's character, because I really think that this story at its root, it's about them. Sasha is our main character. She just is. But that's the way I read it as.
I think you were supposed to see that, and I think you were supposed to suspect that Sasha and Lev were the main Romeo and Juliet, and they do also have their own little death and resurrection thing.
Yeah.
But I think the heart of the story, it starts and ends with Masha and Dimitri.
I think like I like love that, like, we love each other, like, on a, like, primal level. We like love each other so much, but, like, we have these we both have these, like, unhealthy, like, allegiance to our parents, to our mom and dad, and it's, like, unhealthy, so then it tears us apart, and then they come together at the end regardless. And so that was, like, super interesting. Let's go down the list here. So we've got the kills from what we understand under order. Read the book. Comment down below. Let us know how you deciphered it. While you're here, just, like, be like, hey girls, actually this happened.
Hey girls, you are so stupid.
But
you
once
should
again,
get off, stop the podcast, drop your mics. You don't understand basic books.
Yeah, we'll do like a part 2 of this episode and bring one of you on, and then you can be like, okay, this we missed. So anyways, but that's just the fun of reading, isn't it?
Yes.
I personally loved the Lev and Sasha meet up because of Sasha beating the shit out of Eric. Is his name Eric?
Yeah.
I thought that was great. I knew that they would have to meet at some point, and I was waiting. But this is my problem. Okay, how can you be enemies with a whole family and not know what the fuck the guy your age looks like? Like, I don't understand that. No. I love, of course, I wanted the, like, that's your last name. And I love how she's like, I knew it was you. Like, you're good. Oh, maybe she kind of did know it was him. But still.
Did she? No, but she didn't know. He had to tell her.
But I remember
next time they met up.
I remember a line in the book, she's like, Lev, I knew it was you. I'm not stupid. Like, she said something like that. So maybe she did, but still, like, we didn't get that inner monologue
when it first happened.
No.
And but it's also dark.
Yeah.
So I think she knew the second they met up, and it wasn't dark anymore.
She's like, oh, I think this is who I think it is.
I've seen something.
But I mean, it would have been. I liked that he was able to get that when she texted him and her whole name came across like that. That's what I was. That's what I was like wishing for when they met. But I wish we would have been able to get the inner monologue in her head that's like, oh my god, I think that's Lev, but like, okay. And I love when they're walking and their hands get cold. And he's like, watch this. And then she's like, watch this.
Yeah. She's like, I can show you the fuck up. You think you're special?
I love that part.
Oh my gosh. Their first kiss too, like, I got butterflies. I was like, oh. And at first I was like, oh, we're kind of rushing this. But then I was like, oh, not really, because it's Romeo and Juliet. Like, they have to fall quickly so that way they can, like, then be enemies. But Sasha and Lev were never actually enemies.
No.
Like, even after Sasha, she knows that Roman killed her sister. She still goes and sleeps in Lev's bed. Like they love one another the entire time, which, like, my romantic heart is like, but, like, I also was expecting enemies to lovers.
Yeah.
And it's not there.
No, I think the real enemies to lovers is Dim and Masha. Like, I feel like Sasha and Lev are just, like, the younger siblings that are like, but we love each other. Yeah, there's a lot of times I can think about. Weirdly, I'm thinking about 10 Things I Hate About You, that, like, 90s or early 2000s movie with Heath Ledger, and it's like the real love story is actually Heath Ledger and the other girl's character, but, like, the younger sister and, like, they actually end up falling in love, and you're like, oh wait, that's kind of cute. Like, that's like Lev and Sasha. They're just like, you're so cute, and you're moving the story along because you're like the youngest sibling always has, like, the eyes of the family, because you can't go out and you can't have your own choices yet, so you're just, like, watching. And so I love that little, like, add-in, and then of course it moved the story along when they were like, we're gonna kill you both now. Yeah.
Speaking of Baba Yaga and Koschei the Deathless idea that they, like, go on a little walk and they're like, yeah, things have been a little weird between us since I turned down your marriage proposal. What if we just, like, I don't know, both fuck around and, like, let our youngest die, and then things will be GG.
I'm just tired of this eye for an eye shit. They're like, well, you kind of killed Roman, so then we definitely killed your daughter. But now we still don't feel. But now that Roman's back and your daughter's dead, I think we should just, like, kill our youngest now too.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that, like, that there's such cool moments, but, like, the like, make it make sense is not there,
and that's where we get confused, and that's where the confusion starts.
And I also, how do you feel? I liked the idea from, like, a pure idea stance that, like, all of the Antonova girls, like, have this, like there's, like, this, like, star-crossed level between the Antonovas and the Fedorovs. But, like, I also kind of hated that, like, dad wants to fuck mom, oldest brother wants to fuck oldest sister, youngest brother wants to fuck youngest sister, and, like, there's just, like, you can't all be together. I'm sorry.
It is
That's
weird. Like, yeah, well, because then we technically have, like, 3 love plotline stories, and it's like, really doesn't work out, kind of works out, does work out. Like, it tears down, like, generationally, and then there's, like, Roman, who, by the way, I, like, fucking hate. I couldn't stand reading. Every time he called, I'm like, oh my god, just kill him. And I love that Sasha taunts. Like, when he's, like, running around, he's like, I can't get her off of it. Like, I want this to become a movie, because I know that'll be, like, the, like, comedic relief. Like, Roman's character is never supposed to be the villain. He's a villain by default because of the way he was raised, and because it's the pressure he puts on himself. Like, I do think he could have been a good person, but I feel like it's that, like, we look up to someone so much that we don't become who we fully could have been. Like,
but,
if he
would have. Also, Dmitri and Lev became good people.
Yeah, I know, but because it's that like middle child thing where it's like you either go very, like, well, you drive yourself crazy because you're just like, I'm not the youngest, so there's, like, that, but, like, I want to be, because, like, you have to think, Masha and Dim were, like, up on pedestals. I mean, how many times is Sasha like, well, Masha's mom's favorite.
Yeah,
no one can be like Masha. No one can be like Dim. No one can be like Dim. No one can be, so, like, for a brother and, like, that, like, male ego, you're just like, give me responsibility, Dad. And Dad's like, no, like, go away. And Lev's just like, I'm good.
Guys, being the middle child sucks, actually. I told Jacob the other day, I was like, we are going to have an even number of kids because I hated being the middle kid.
Yeah, my older brother, he's the middle, like, I'm thinking I'm like, yeah, like, he was either, and you're never like, the oldest, you're never the youngest. You're just like floating. And so it's hard coming from a family of 3. So at least like in Sasha's family, like the middles, there's so many middle sisters.
There's so many.
They just like have each other. So like it's not, once you have like more kids, it's not bad. So like Masha and Sasha really like stick out. But with the boys, it's like he was kind of dealt the shit end of the stick. He didn't not do the right thing, and that does make him a bad person. But I did see Olivie Blake try to give us a sense of a redemption arc. Not that he got one. I mean,
well,
he doesn't die. He
doesn't die. He just gets a job with Bridge.
Yeah, that's a redemption arc, people.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting how they kind of paint out that, like, no, like, Koshi's really just, like, a bad person. He is a bad person.
I do like that idea of being, like, obviously all of these children are dealing with generational trauma. This is, they are becoming the product of their parents. All of the issues are rooted in this idea that the parents fucked up and they put all of this pressure on their children. They selected favorites. They, made them be participants in like the illegal dealings. Even we can see like Masha as being like, I don't want Sasha to get into this business. Like I did that and I don't want that for my younger sibling. And Baba Yaga just being like, no, you're going to, like, you did it, I did it, all at the same age, and like not understanding. So that kind of like generational trauma and like watching it get broken, and like Olivie Blake is very clear that like the blame is on the parents and it's not on these kids. Because I think that like Roman's still, I mean, if Lev is around 21, 22, I think Roman's in his 20s.
Yeah.
So it's like you're an adult, but like you've also, especially in these family dynamics, will always be treated like a kid. Like you still have time to grow. Murder, not great, but you gotta deal within like their own like moral structure. Like they're already like crime bosses.
Yes, they're already like
they're doing shady stuff. It's very clear that like that was like the first person that Roman's killed. Like it's just the first named character that like they do shady stuff. And so like working within like the morals of the setting and in the book.
Yeah, I mean in Roman's defense, even though I hate him, he felt like this is how I'm gonna prove myself. These are our biggest enemies. We're gonna take them down. Dad's gonna be like, oh cool, you saved Dimitri, you're my favorite son, like you are the heir, like you rock, Roman. And Roman was like, now I just have a fucking ghost following me around, like
now
going like
being haunted.
And like Sasha's like, who did this to me, Roman? And he's like, stop it!
Leave me alone.
And then all right, how do we feel about when Masha and Dim decide like, okay, we are going to take down our parents, and then they basically, Masha especially, which I don't know how I feel about this, plays everyone in Masha fashion. She like she has Sasha and Lev, but like she's not telling them that they're alive. And Lev is like living with Eric now and like a drug dealer to like take the money. That's crazy.
I feel like the manipulation of like Masha didn't tell Sasha and Lev that the other was alive because she knew that they would be more willing to do the stuff she needed them to do if they believed that they were doing it because the other person was dead, and like kind of like in service and in revenge for that other person. And I guess she knew they were gonna get the happily ever. It's manipulative, but like I was like, okay, it makes sense.
I like it.
Did she get Baba Yaga in the end though?
Okay, so the Baba Yaga thing is confusing to me as well, because we know that Dimitri runs for
the Bureau Witch.
The Bureau Witch, which is her dead husband,
her
season, which is interesting. And then she like never shows up, and like had her own plot. Yeah. And so in the end, she did not go against Baba Yaga. And Dimitri
Yeah.
said, I knew you wouldn't. But they do go against Koshi.
Yes, they do deliver all of the documents on the dad. And the dad does he does some weird Uno Reverso thing where who does he work with? At the very end, the dad doesn't die, but just pretends to be a normal person and gives the business to someone else. Is it to Bridge? It's to someone who then uses the crime boss foundation to start helping the little creatures, because a F plot was that Koshi was super racist towards the little fantasy creatures and so they use his legacy and his name to start helping those people.
Yeah. It's weird. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And the fact that Sasha, she just goes back to work. She just goes to the front store job. At the end, I was like, we're not what's going on here? I know that Masha's not helping Baba Yaga run the company anymore, run the drug dealing thing. Doesn't seem like Sasha is either. She's just doing the front store. Is it just the front store, or are they continuing just without Masha?
I know. It's crazy. I don't know. Cuz at the end of the book, it's playing to the well, I can give you 20 minutes if you want to come by this. It's playing on that. So the idea is that they gave the borough what they wanted to take down the crime. Because it's funny. It was interesting because when you first start reading this book, you're like, oh wow, the boroughs in New York with the witches, they're really corrupt, but they're not. There are good, well, behaved witches that live in New York City, but we are watching the crime.
Yeah, we're from the villain's point of view.
Yeah. And so, first of all, no one in this book is good. They're all morally gray.
Yeah.
Some more than others, and some just born into the morally grayness. If that's a word. So yeah, it's interesting. They don't really take down Baba Yaga, and I'm not gonna say I'm not mad about that, because I like Baba Yaga. I think she's a baller. I think she's a badass bitch. I think she needs to be. But she does use her girls, because I remember when Masha died, Baba Yaga goes to the one sister. She's like, "Did you dream about anything?" Because she can see the dead and talk to. One can see, one can hear, and so she's like, "Did you dream about anything last night?" She's using her kids to get. I don't know.
But she has weird boundaries, because I feel like Masha had to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they started placing Sasha in a position to do everything. But she was if you're uncomfortable, if you won't talk to Masha, you don't have to. When Masha died to the oldest twins, the second oldest, the twins.
Mm-hmm.
But it was weird. I don't understand. I feel like if you're going to set up to blame the parents for the crimes of the children, both of the parents should have been punished.
Yeah, it's and I think about that, it's a little backwards. Because if the way I remember it, that Baba Yaga really didn't lose much. Maybe she stopped drug dealing.
Maybe I know that Masha didn't show up to the bureau thing, but I got confused if she did then hand in the files that she had on her mom. Her mom just got away.
Gotcha. Yeah,
but I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck, Charlie, with that one, listeners. It's hard. No. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. But I do want to talk about vibes. I just love Masha's vibe. She kind of gives me Nesta energy, if anyone's ever read Court of Thorns, the ACOTAR series. When she's putting on her gloves, and Ivan, her side, once again, definitely Russian, kind of undertones here. I'm imagining a very Russian, not just man who you would be oh shit, he's gonna kill me, but then she walks in and then actually does.
Mm-hmm.
And I love when she puts on her gloves and walks out. She always has big red lipstick on, or sunglasses, and when Sasha comes in with Lev, and she's like, "You betrayed me, you lied to me," and I was like, okay, like she can't get that mad about it because she's like, I brought him back, like she's the reason he's alive, and she's like, it was for your own good, Sasha. And she's like, should I wear the gray or like the red?
Yeah.
And she's like,
so unapologetic.
Yes, so unapologetic. And I love that little like
yes.
I gave it like a bite, and it also separated like what the oldest and the youngest are like in that family. But like for like Dimitri, he was very not like that. He was very like puppy dog.
Dimitri was whipped so hard.
Yes, he was.
But Masha was Masha's character type is like what you see as the like sexy, like gruff assassin. Like you see that a lot in media, but I think that Olivie Blake does such a good job of like, I like the hot badass bitch character. I like that in media. And almost always it's over sexualized, and like they strip away and there's not enough character to the girl and you just get the cool vibes. But I feel like Olivie Blake gives us that like cliche character that we want, but actually develops it. So it's like a real character and a relatable like
she follows
woman.
through.
Like the power of women writing women who are badass and sexy versus like a man being like, I just want someone who's hot. Like,
correct. Yeah, and the fact that like she for 12 years like moved on, even though she never really moved on, married, like, had a whole life, and he just like, oh, I just love Masha.
Yeah.
Like I just think
he's like whiny. She gets married. She's like, I love this guy. Maybe not as much, but like, he'll do.
Like I don't know. I love it. It's like she crafted a character and then like followed through, and so I can respect that. Yeah. What fun, guys. This vibes.
Yeah. That's honestly the book is full of vibes. I feel like Sasha and Lev could be a little whiny at times.
Yeah.
And like sometimes like Lev would say stuff and I'd be like,
one day we're texting.
But Sasha would like respond back and be like, ew, gross. But like
sometimes
Lev.
When Lev came on like really strong, because technically, which I never really got into, like he technically was with her to manipulate and like use it against them, but they never got into the like, you betrayed, because the book didn't have time for it. Okay, if this was like a long series, like we would have time for it. Okay, but I
think the characters knew they were using each other.
Yeah, they're like, obviously we're using each other, but like actually I kind of dig you. But yeah, Lev would say stuff and I was like, bro, you are so young and so immature and this is so cringy. When he would text, and the text chains, I'm like, leave him. And Sasha was like, well, I don't know, sorry, I was actually sleeping. Like, but she was into it too, because she's also kind of weird and quirky. They're quirky.
It was too realistic.
Yeah.
My fantasy, dark, moody, prosy book, she did texting to, like, yes, that is a clingy frat bro who thinks he's the shit. That is exactly how this conversation works. That's exactly how that archetype texts. And that's exactly how you respond to it. I just don't want it in my fantasy book. I get secondhand embarrassment. Like,
yes.
It's like if you read back your text, like, of when you first started dating someone, you're like, oh, this is so cringy and embarrassing. But, like, when you're in, the love gaze, you're like, haha, and, like, you're into it, but, like, no one else can be.
Yeah.
No one else can be.
No. This is exactly where we have issues, where it's like, you have Romeo and Juliet prose set in a moody, dark fantasy novel, but then you add this. And this doesn't... Sure, like, it just, I don't know.
It takes me out of it.
It takes me out of it a little bit. In good ways and bad ways.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, like, okay, finally, something I understand I'm reading. But then sometimes I'm like, no, but you didn't follow the structure of what you were going for. And now I'm, like, thrown for a loop. And so, yeah.
I like the blend, but there's a line.
There's a line, yeah. So, but with that being said, I will continue to read Olivie Blake because I like to put myself through pain in the best ways possible. So we can all be confused, and then I come on here,
Yeah.
and then maybe you guys can help clear up some shit. Because honestly, I like that we're a little confused, because this also kind of gives way to like, yeah, like there were points in this book that just don't make sense. I mean, Aubrie and I read like it's basically our job, right? Like
Yeah.
we read a lot of books, and especially Aubrie reads a lot of high fantasy books. So if we're having a little bit of trouble connecting the dots,
Yeah.
you know, it's a 4 out of
Maybe.
5. It's a 3 out of 5 stars. You know, it's
Yeah.
hard. But once again, like I just want to say, I did really enjoy this book. I enjoyed reading these characters. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. I love to read a book for vibes. I will absolutely like Bridgerton. I love that TV show. You just go in it for the vibes, and you just have to respect the vibes. You have to understand that this is going to go into an aesthetic, and that's what you're getting, and you need to enjoy those parts and turn your brain off. And that's why we read. We read to turn our brain off. So
yes. All right. That is all we have time for today. What is your star rating for One for My Enemy? Do you prefer a dark witchy book or a spooky thriller for Halloween? We went more for the vibes of the witch, but maybe a thriller is on our way. And of course, if there's anything you'd like us to cover in the future, please let us know. We have some holidays coming up, Christmas. I haven't really read a Christmas book except Court of Frost and Starlight. So
maybe like a smutty little Christmas book that has like, like the horribly photoshopped shirtless guy with like a Santa hat on. Give us your worst smutty little Christmas book, Rex.
Yeah, like we read like Charles Dickens. Okay, anyway, so let us know your recommendations. We'd love to hear them.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy reading.